Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to Accelerated Health TV and radio show. I'm your host, Sara Banta. I'm a health coach, natural supplement expert, and a busy mom of three. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you're notified every week with my new podcast on Mondays and Tuesdays. And if you haven't already, join my free group coaching on Telegram with the link below. There is no downside. I teach you on a daily basis with tips and tools to enhance your health, and you'll be a part of a like-minded group to support you on your journey in addition to truly taking control of your health. My goal is to reach everyone on earth with eyes to see and ears to hear my message of healing. So help me with that goal. Share this podcast with a few of your friends who may need my help, and they're going to want to hear this one because it's affecting everybody. We are talking about ending the vicious cycle of burnout and exhaustion. Tell me who that doesn't apply to. We have Kelly Rompel here. She's a pharmacist turned functional medicine and epigenetic consultant, author of Don't Tell Me to Relax, host of the Rebel White Coat podcast, which I've been on, and founder of Wild Roots Wellness. Welcome, Kelly. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to talk about this topic because as a female, I don't think it's any secret that especially moms, and especially high achieving moms that have probably their work, their kids, lack of sleep, trying to keep the husband happy, making dinner at night, doing diapers. Well, your kids are younger. My kids are older, and I will never forget, preschool teacher told me, Sarah, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. All three of my kids are in the house right now because of Thanksgiving, back from college. And it's like exciting, but it's this pressure and stress that has increased, right? So it doesn't even matter what age the kids are. And then possibly working or running a business. You've got these demands, right, that are going to eventually cause burnout. And that's away from the fact that we have global fear, global pandemic aftermath, all that stress in everything that's going on, the diet and the food supply and the toxicity and all of these things are hitting us one, after another. And I feel like we all are just like, oh my God, what do I do? And we get out of bed and we're wired and tired and we can't get out of the cycle. So a topic that hits everyone. I know you focus a lot on women, but men, you guys need to hear this too, because I was telling Kelly before we got on that this is my husband at the time right now. So why don't we talk about what got you into this topic? Why are you so passionate about this, and what's your story?
Yeah, thank you. So I think there's many pivotal moments along my journey that got me here, but a couple stick out. And I think the first one that really sticks out to me was back when I was in my last year or so of pharmacy school. I found myself at the GI doctor's office getting a colonoscopy, getting a diagnosis of IBS, anxiety, depression, walking out of that test with 4 prescriptions. And over time, I just realized I was experiencing more side effects from those. I wasn't getting any better. And to be honest, once I got behind the pharmacy counter, I graduated pharmacy school, got behind the pharmacy counter, I started realizing that I was in this vicious cycle like many other people I was seeing. I had the same customers coming in month after month. Their doses of their meds were going up. They were complaining to me about their side effects, getting more meds to work with those side effects. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was frustrating to watch. But it made me take a good hard look at myself and realize that I was in a vicious cycle as well, of taking meds that were not helping me at all. And I had more side effects, more meds, up my doses. And it just shook something in me to where I realized I needed to do something different. If I wanted a different result, I had to do something different. So it was a slow progression, honestly. Nothing changed overnight, but slowly I started to realize that my diet was crap. My relationships were toxic. I had a lot of stress that I wasn't dealing with. And if the doctor would have asked me back when I was getting that colonoscopy, if they just would have asked me anything about my diet and lifestyle, I would have told them I was running on ramen noodles and rum and cokes. I was in college. So, but no one asked me that. So, here I was down the road of trying to fix myself, trying to help myself. So it was a slow progression of taking a real good look at my diet, fixing my diet, looking at my lifestyle, looking at my relationships, and taking a really holistic approach. That turned into me feeling a lot better, getting off all those meds. And I found myself helping others because I couldn't resist, right? I felt so good. I'm like, you've got to try this. You've got to try that. Look at all these hacks I found. And so I started helping other people. Next thing you know, I'm taking clients in my basement. And it just eventually evolved into what is now my full-time business. But back then it was my gut health issues and my mental health struggles that were the problem. And then I had a whole new set of issues right after I started my business, and I found myself in and out of a state of burnout and had chronic exhaustion. And that wasn't me. I was always super energetic, super motivated. I'm a high performer, high achiever. What's next? Goal oriented, right? And I just found myself really exhausted. Couldn't make it through the day without a nap. I had a hard time getting up. Couldn't go to sleep at night. Kind of like you had said, everyone's wired and tired, right? That was me. Couldn't calm my brain down. And I had terrible acne, terrible skin issues, and just a lot of different things. And I started to realize, this is burnout. I've got myself here. And I started to have the realization all over again of, I don't want this to be the way my life looks. And, my business doesn't have to mean that I have to experience burnout. And so again, overhauled the way I was doing things. And now I have a passion for this because I've been there. So I help my clients with what I've been through.
Your story is so similar to mine, and I have to laugh at the fact that at the GI doctor, all they're doing is giving you medication, and at least they gave you medication. When I was there, they just told me to go take Metamucil, and I have IBS, and left, shut the door behind me. Never asked about my diet. But it's what I really want to emphasize with what you just said is that when you first started out, it was anxiety and depression and your gut issues. But then you cleaned up your gut, but the burnout and the stress is also hitting your gut, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just our diet and the food we're eating, it's the diet and the people that are coming into our lives, and the workload and the lack of sleep, all of those lifestyle things that cause gut issues. It's not just the cheeseburger from McDonald's. So, right? Or the rum and Coke. It's so funny that you mentioned that because that's bringing back memories.
Oh yeah, it's the truth.
And what you're talking about with the burnout, that is affecting the people that are supposed to have it together because they're the high achievers. And it's really interesting in our industry, you will see podcasters that are go, go, go. And then all of a sudden they're quiet because something happened, right? And they had to take a sabbatical or whatever. And you're like, I haven't seen that person show up in my YouTube feed lately or whatever. And so it hits us all. And that's where it's such a balancing act. And if you really think that there's perfect balance in life, good luck. There's not. It's just trying to make it happen in all the different areas of your life. The other thing I wanted to touch on or emphasize that you mentioned was the toxic people in your life. Mm-hmm. When you start cleaning up your diet and start feeling better, it's amazing how you let go of those toxic relationships. And I've had a lot of clients say to me as they're doing a cleanse or just starting on some supplements and cleaning up their diet, gosh, it's amazing. I'm getting rid of these old friends that I have been holding me back. Mm-hmm. And it's like this aha moment. So I just wanted to emphasize that. Now, burnout is some, people use the term adrenal fatigue, and then there's this whole thing about, well, that's not really a real thing, but you're calling it burnout. What are some common signs and symptoms that people should look out for?
Yeah, so I call it burnout, but what I'm really referring to is chronic fatigue, brain fog, focus issues. You might have just been diagnosed with ADHD out of the blue, or frustrations around weight management, hormonal imbalances even, and low motivation. These are all chronic stress symptoms that really are just clues that the body systems that keep us thriving and healthy are compromised. And those body systems most typically are the gut, the liver, the nervous system, and the adrenals. So I love doing advanced functional lab testing to really help to get to an underlying root cause of what's contributing to these symptoms. Because there's so many different things that can cause burnout symptoms, right? We can't just put a blanket term on and say it's just stress, because there's so much more than that. Yes, stress is a huge contributor, but what's stressing us? Because there's psychological stress, there's physical stress, there's trauma, there's infection. There's a lot of different things that could be stressing our body out and really compromising and causing dysregulation of our cortisol, which then in turn leads to a whole other bunch of problems as far as hormonal imbalances and chronic fatigue. And it goes round and round. It's a vicious cycle, but we've got to get to underlying root cause. And that's why I'm a huge fan of using advanced functional lab testing to do so.
So let's talk about cortisol. I always call it the dirty cupcake, because you don't even get the benefit of eating that yummy cupcake, but you're going to store fat, because cortisol is that fat storing hormone. It's the stress hormone. And if you're running from a tiger, you need that cortisol. It's awesome.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
gonna make me be able to lift up a car to save my child, right, for that moment. But it's not going, chronic cortisol release is not what it's meant to be doing. And then what happens is that imbalance of when the cortisol is supposed to rise or fall during the day. Will you go through what the cortisol is supposed to do during a 24-hour period versus what you see in people with burnout?
Yeah. So what we would like to see as far as cortisol patterns is that when you wake up in the morning, your cortisol is very, very low. And then about 90 minutes into your day, it ramps up. It kind of shoots up quickly. And then it goes down very gradually the rest of the day into the afternoon. And then by bedtime, we want it to be super low again. So we see different stages of cortisol dysregulation, I'll say. And this kind of goes back to your whole question about adrenal fatigue, and if that's even a valid way of putting it. And so here's my take on it. There's a few different stages. Stage one looks like really high cortisol, most typically. So this, and cortisol, I should start off by saying cortisol gets a bad rap. We need cortisol. We need it to feel awake. We need it to deal with stress. It's important. Where we find trouble is when we have super high cortisol levels, or if super low is actually equally as bad, if not worse. And so there's a few different stages. So oftentimes around, stage one, we like to refer to it as is where we see very high cortisol. All right. Lots of stress. We're pumping out a lot of cortisol, which dysregulates our blood sugars. One of cortisol's jobs is to increase blood sugar. So if we are dealing with high cortisol levels from chronic stress, whether that's psychological, infection, or whatever else, that's going to shoot our blood sugars up. If we shoot our blood sugars up, we eventually have to pump out insulin in order to lower them again. And so over time, doing this over and over and over again and dysregulated with our blood sugars can lead to insulin resistance. And this is where we often see a lot of weight management issues, cortisol belly, frustrations with that, right? And then we have stage two, where those patterns that I was talking about become very wonky, I'll say. So people will wake up with super high cortisol first thing in the morning, and then maybe when they're supposed to be lowering cortisol, it's higher in the evening, right before bed, and then they can't settle down, they can't go to sleep, and so they've got the wrong pattern, right? And then we have stage 3. This is where I was when this hit really home to me. And I was that person with the podcast that you were talking about. I'm like, is she talking to me? I was like gun ho. And then I dropped off. I dropped off for like 2 years because I was in such a state of burnout. It's just a good reminder that our bodies will make us slow down if we don't choose to slow down. And so just choosing to slow down while you can is so important. While you still have the choice. I'll say that real quick. But I was in stage 3, and that looked like very, very low cortisol levels. Like my patterns weren't looking good. I just super low production all day long. And I had a lot of hormonal imbalances as well. My body was really trying to prioritize stress, and that showed everywhere else. My digestion was off, my hormones were off, and my stress resiliency sucked. Quite honestly, I had no resiliency around stress. Little stressors became a big deal very fast. And then it took me a long time to kind of unwind from that stressor. And so I know a lot of the listeners can probably relate to that. It's like, gosh, the littlest things want to set me off. Well, you might be in a stage of lower cortisol. So I had low cortisol levels, and that became really hard for me to maintain my energy levels. That's why I was napping throughout the day. I was not motivated. So,
yeah. And then you throw in the kids that are asking you to do, and your normal things that you have to do with your family life and everything else just to keep things going.
yes.
Let's talk. What did your hormones look like? What was the profile of your hormonal imbalances when you were in this state?
Yeah, I was super low on all my hormones. Low estrogen, low progesterone, low testosterone, just everything was low. My body was just dysregulated, and like I said, prioritizing stress over, it was trying to manage and just stay alive versus trying to worry about procreating or digesting food. So yeah, I just had low hormones across the board, and that looked like low energy levels, low libido, right? And so it's no fun.
And what about the hormones like dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin? Where do those fit into this profile of burnout?
Yeah, so oftentimes it's interesting because oftentimes I see low dopamine metabolites on labs, and I would need a brain scan to see what's going on in the brain, but I do see lower dopamine production a lot of times, and that comes from a few different things. Sometimes that can be from low vitamin cofactors that are needed for dopamine, which keeps us focused and excited, right? And motivated. It's a feel-good chemical. And I will see vitamin and mineral deficiencies that are causing low dopamine levels. And also dopamine comes from amino acids, which is building blocks of protein. So a lot of clients will come to me with not getting enough protein in their diet. And then they're vitamin and mineral deficient, which it's not enough for me either to say, oh yeah, on a lab, I see you're deficient in all these things. Let's slap a supplement on it, which is great. I am a huge supplement snob, but we still have to figure out why we're deficient, right? And so we got to look at diet. We got to look at mainly gut health. I see a lot of vitamin and mineral deficiencies in conjunction with poor gut health, gut infections, gut inflammation, leaky gut, inflammatory gut issues, right? And so we've got to correct that if we want to correct the absorption of our nutrition, which then helps us to produce neurotransmitters like dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin to keep us focused, happy, and calm. So there's many things go into that, but I would say it starts a lot with gut health and also nervous system regulation too. That's one thing I always like to mention, because I can throw you on any supplement I want. I can show you all the labs, but if you're not willing to work on regulating your nervous system, meaning getting out of a state or fight or flight, unfortunately, we are chronically in fight or flight, just with everyday stressors, our phones pinging, our emails going, we got kids and life and the craziness that's happening in the world right now. We are in chronic states of fight or flight. And so if we're not working on getting out of that state on a daily basis, then we're not getting out of fight or flight, which means our digestion's not optimal, our hormones are not being produced. So I mention this because we've got to focus on nervous system regulation if we want to make any change and any impact, right? So I know that's also one of the hardest things for people to change, because that requires us to slow down. And when you're talking to high performers, like CEOs and entrepreneurs and busy moms, try telling them to slow down. It's, first of all, it's hard because we have a lot going on. Second of all, it's foreign to us at this point. We're so addicted to cortisol and adrenaline, and we're always in this amped out state that when we do slow down, we almost feel as if, well, we feel guilty, first of all, but we also, it feels foreign to us. And it's like, oh gosh, well, what do I need to do? I'm like sitting on the couch, like, well, I can't do this, right? I can't slow down and meditate. And so when I ask people to regulate their nervous system through practices like meditation, taking a nature walk, or even sitting down to journal, it's like, oh, immediately they turn off to that. And it's like, I can't do, I don't have time for that. Well, I'm like, well, then I can't get you into a healing state if you're in chronic fight or flight.
I feel like you're yelling at me that I need to do everything you're saying, because you're talking to me. I'm the type of person that if I'm watching TV, I need to be doing something productive while I'm doing it.
Yes.
Right? And I have to be doing two things at once. And it's funny because my college daughter just arrived home for Thanksgiving break, and she was sitting there in the family room with us, and she's like, God, I feel like I need to be doing something. What am I doing? And because she's a student, she's an athlete,
Right.
and her schedule is like this, and this, time blocked for every little minute of her day. And to come home on a break, she doesn't even know what to do with herself. And I'm the same way. And it's something that is really hard for me to implement.
Mhm.
The one thing I can say is I've got two dogs that look at me that say, you better walk me. And those puppy eyes are what makes me go take a walk to relieve stress and lower that cortisol. It's one of the best things that I can do for myself. And being out in the sun, obviously that helps as well. I would love to be on a beach or somewhere else where my feet are in the sand, but I don't have that ability to on a daily basis. So that, and you mentioned the gut. And so this is interesting because I talk a lot about gut health and detoxing, and and foods that you shouldn't be eating, foods that have oxalates in them, or sulfur containing foods that could have been healthy for someone 10 years ago, but now with the glyphosate and GMOs into our food supply, it's caused an issue with sulfur detoxification. So my point in bringing this up is that people say, well, sulfur, you need to eat these sulfur foods. And I'll say, well, yeah, but those sulfur foods are causing leaky gut. So you're not even absorbing the nutrients that you think you're getting. And so when you have a leaky gut or gut issues, whether you're taking supplements, vitamins, nutrients from the foods, whatever, you're not absorbing it. So, then you're going to get these symptoms like brain fog and chronic fatigue symptoms and just wired and tired because you are not absorbing the nutrients. And so diet, it goes hand in hand with managing stress, because the stress on its own is going to cause that leaky gut.
Yes.
And we haven't even gotten into the heavy metal toxicity that can wreak havoc on the gut and radiation and all of that. So why don't we touch on the heavy metals, and I know you test for those. What do you see happen with heavy metals and burnout?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I do test for heavy metals, and I so often will see high levels of heavy metals. But what's interesting about heavy metal overload is that it makes you at a higher risk for gut infections, and mainly yeast overgrowth and parasites. So, and then a lot of people don't realize that they've got this gut overgrowth of yeast or bad bacteria, which is giving off more toxins, which is crossing the blood-brain barrier and causing more brain fog and chronic fatigue as well. So again, it goes back to the gut, but the heavy metals also impact our energy levels because it really impacts our ability to break down food into energy via the Krebs cycle. I won't get into that, but Yeah, so heavy metals play a huge role, and so it's really important for us to make sure we're releasing heavy metals through use of detoxes and binders. And I love glutathione and NAC and all these antioxidants that help us to get rid of heavy metals. But knowing the excuse me, knowing the connection of heavy metals to poor gut health and parasites, a lot of people don't realize that connection is there. So when you do any type of cleanse or kill off product to rebalance the gut, it's really important that you're also focusing on getting rid of heavy metals in addition to that. Otherwise, because if you're not, then that heavy metal overload will put you at risk for that infection again. So heavy metals are a tough one though, because they're everywhere. So I tell people, avoid exposure where you can. We can't live in a bubble, but we can choose cleaner products, cleaner makeup, and watching what we're putting on and in our body. I'm a huge fan of clean water, big water snob over here. But I tell people, try not to overhaul your life in one day, because that's not sustainable. But start by looking at what you're consuming, what you're putting in your body, so water and air, and then look at the products that you're putting on your body. I'm a big fan of using clean makeup and really watching fragrances and not having exposure to plastic if I can help it. And then, but there's still chemtrails and there's still environmental toxins that we're going to come into contact with. So making sure that our body's well equipped to detoxify naturally through good diet. I eat a lot of berries in my morning smoothie. Those are natural detoxifiers, especially blueberries. But making sure that you're having a good diet to help with detox. But also, I'm a big fan of bringing in supplements for detox as well.
Yeah, and when I was first, down on my health journey, when I was at rock bottom, I tested my metals. I was off the charts in lead, mercury, and what was the third one? I can't remember, but lead can make you crazy. It can cause anxiety. It can cause just your brain to just go wacky and make you not feel well. And it went through the process of chelation. I've come up with the radiation and heavy metal detox bundle, which has the accelerating iodine and the accelerated detox powder to bind the toxins. Because when you detox, I'm sure you know that you see this in your clients, where if they start to detox too quickly, they'll then have the detox flu symptoms. So we need a binder to soak up and get things out quickly. And but that's a big thing that people aren't seeing. Even in my house, I have as many cleaning supplies that are all natural and everything like that, but then I'll find the cascade underneath the sink for the dishes. And I'm thinking, okay, we're eating off these plates. We're scrubbing our forks with these cleaners and not thinking that that's going to affect us. So it's a lot.
It is a lot.
It is a lot. We are trying to make sure our food is clean, our water is clean. Just right now, we have a fire that was going on in an airplane hangar locally, and they couldn't put it out. But they were thinking that there's asbestos and other toxins released, and it was a very windy day. So now it's all blowing into the community. Do you think I'm exposed to that air? Absolutely. There's no way not to be, right? So then you just have to, you're a salmon swimming upstream, unfortunately today. But there is hope. And once you are able to take supplements, change your diet, lower the stress, your body will start cleansing as much as it needs, hopefully. Okay, we've got what we that notify, the symptoms. You can't sleep, but then you wake up tired. You've got the brain fog, the weight gain. The weight gain is there because your body is it's in survival mode.
Yes.
And so what does it need to do in survival mode? It needs to store that fat to survive later on if you get into a famine, right? Are there any other symptoms that we're missing that we haven't covered?
So let's see. We talked about hormonal imbalances. So I see a lot of poor libido. I see PMS symptoms, and these are all trickle down effects. I see poor sleep. I see toxin overload that turns into, fatigue and gut infections. I see a lot of vitamin and mineral deficiencies. I think we hit on most of the symptoms. So, and what you would imagine someone to look like when they're just chronically exhausted, that's what we're talking about. We're irritable. We've got a short fuse, and we're tired, and we're just not ourselves. That's, I think, most of especially the moms that come to me, the high performing moms who just feel like they have to, have their business running perfectly. They've got to be the perfect mom, the perfect wife, the perfect friend. Like they just got themselves spread too thin. They come to me and they're like, I'm a mess. I'm a shell of myself. I'm pissed off all the time. My kids don't have a good version of me, and I'm a stress monster. And then you want to throw in PMS on top of it. Don't talk to me for 2 weeks out of the month. It's a mess. So that's typically what people say when they come to me. And then we start, from there, that's when we want to dig into the labs and really uncover root cause, so we can start unpacking like what do we need to change as far as diet, lifestyle, sleep, stress management, all these things. And not to sound overwhelming, but there's a step-by-step process to it. We always start with our mindset. Then we talk about nervous system regulation. Gut health is up next. Then we look at your adrenals and your cortisol, right? And then from there, we can talk about metabolism and weight management. But a lot of this is trickle down effect, right? So when it really comes down to it, I'm trying to figure out, why are you so inflamed? Where's the source of inflammation? And we're looking at the labs to uncover, is it infection? Is it toxins, or is it stress related? And typically it's all of them. People don't come to me just having a little symptom here or there. They come to me when they have been to multiple doctors, had all the traditional labs done, nothing's working, everything comes back normal, and they have got no answers. And by that time, all the body systems are involved. So it's never just a simple, oh yeah, we'll just go ahead and fix this one little thing. It's a process, but knowing that there's a step-by-step process, and knowing that you have the labs to really help us determine where to start, and then the support and guidance from myself and my the dietitian that works with me, her name's Caitlin. You have us as a team to look at this from a holistic point of view. Right? So meaning your diet, lifestyle, relationship, stress, sleep, all of it, because all of it matters. We really do have to take everything into consideration.
And what are the top tips that you will give somebody when it comes to mindset and the nervous system? Because I feel like that is the hardest part for people to change. They've been taught to be a certain way, and that's why they found success in life. So now, how can they still be that successful person, but in a more manageable, healthier way?
Yeah. Boundaries, I think, are a big place to start. Unfortunately, we are the type to say yes to everyone else and everything else, and no to ourselves. So knowing just every time you say yes to something else, you're saying no to something else, right? So if you're saying yes to helping somebody, you're saying no to taking that time. If you're saying yes to your kids, you're taking no. And it's just a balance, right? And we have to say yes to a lot in life. But all those yeses over time lead to a whole lot of no's. And we've got to be willing to put in place some boundaries around our time, our energy, and our self-care. For me, when everything changed, when I started making my self-care a non-negotiable. And I know in the beginning that's hard. It's like, yeah, like who's got time? You have to make time. I promise, if you look at your schedule, there's always time that you can make, whether you're taking, you're using a lot of time to scroll mindlessly on social media or watching TV. And I'm not against any of that. Like, I like to dissociate as much as the next person. But I make sure that every single day I have my self-care items checked off like a to-do list. I'm that methodical about it. I have my calendar sitting directly next to me. As an example, here's what's on it. Here's what I like to do on a daily basis. I exercise 4 to 5 times a week, first thing in the morning. No work gets done at my desk until I have gone to my boot camp class. It gets my mind right. It's what I need. It's a non-negotiable. I start with that. Every single day I do red light therapy while I journal. So if you want to, if you want to tack on two things at once, I feel efficient when I do stuff like that, but I sit in front of my red light as I'm journaling. I also am a big fan of taking time out in nature. I have to take a break once or twice a day to go on a nature walk. It's getting a little harder now because it's getting cold outside, but that's another area for me. And also my use of my sauna. I'm a big fan of sauna for detox purposes as well, and for my sore muscles because of boot camp. So I just have some items that every single day, yes. Do they take time? Mm-hmm. Did I have a lot of guilt around doing that in the beginning? Yes. Because I don't start work at my desk till 9:30 or 10 every morning. And that was difficult to wrap my mind around for a very long time. I've had multiple conversations with my husband and my friends and my business colleagues, like, oh my, I don't even start work till 9:30 or 10. Is this okay? Yes, because I take care of my body, right? So having boundaries around your time and energy, and going back to toxic relationships, allowing maybe the people who are no longer in your same frequency to fall off, and let that be okay. It doesn't mean you have to shoo people away, but it doesn't mean that if you realize someone is toxic or maybe stealing your energy and always taking and never giving, maybe having a strong boundary around those relationships. And you will get back to that text when you get back to it. You can get back to that email when you get back to it. Not everything is an emergency right now. You need to start saying yes to yourself more.
I love what you're saying. And I've always said, I work out in the morning. I then use my sauna. And I always tell my kids, if I'm able to do those two things, I can have darts thrown at me the rest of the day, because I feel it stabilizes me, it gets my mind straight and calms me down. And I feel like I'm strong and resilient for the rest of the day. Where does coffee come in? And where does intermittent fasting come in for your clients that have burnout?
Yeah. Oh, I love the caffeine topic. Okay. So I'm not against caffeine. I drink caffeine every day in the form of matcha, but I am against caffeine on an empty stomach. And so I know that's a very, very hard habit for most of my clients to break. But the reason why I'm against caffeine on an empty stomach, and you can have it, but just please have it after you've had a balanced meal. So for me, my balanced meal in the morning looks like a smoothie, very high in protein. It's got my healthy fats in there, got some carbs. And so that to me is a balanced meal. Then I'll have my matcha or my caffeine after that. But the reason why that is because of stabilizing blood sugars. If as soon as we take a stimulant or a caffeine on an empty stomach, that can send us into a state of fight or flight, which can elevate. Here we go again with elevating our cortisol. And when your cortisol becomes dysregulated over time, and this is not going to happen from drinking caffeine on empty stomach every once in a while. This is the people who are doing it every day, and it becomes a habit. But you're going to increase those cortisol levels and increase your blood sugar, and then here goes the insulin, and then the crashes later on. And so it creates this up and down your blood sugars, where we just want to keep everything steady, right? We want to slow the absorption so we don't have that huge spike in blood sugar and cortisol. So yeah, I'm a big fan of caffeine, just not on an empty stomach. As far as intermittent fasting, there is a really good book that I will recommend to all the listeners called Fast Like a Girl by Dr. Mindy Pelz. You aware of that? Oh my gosh, what a great book.
A show in a couple of weeks, so that'll be great to listen to.
Yes, I think I ran out of an entire highlighter in that book. I absolutely loved it because I knew the power of intermittent fasting and fasting in general. You can use it as a reset when you are sick, when you're wanting to improve your insulin sensitivity. You can even improve your dopamine receptor activity through fasting. But ladies, if we don't fast according to our cycle, we're doing ourselves a disservice, and we're doing more damage, more harm than we are good. And so what that book is about is just fast, and it's not difficult. It's just fasting according to your menstrual cycle in order to optimize the effects of fasting. So I am a big fan of that in the right way, I'll say.
Right. And fasting is a hormetic stressor. And so if you're already stressed and burned out and you're adding that on, it might take you down the route, give you the opposite results that you're looking for.
Right.
That is where I do like the accelerated keto supplement, because it kicks you into ketosis. So it calms your brain down, increases GABA and dopamine and serotonin. So your body is in this relaxed state while you're fasting and healing the gut, and everything's working down there. But then not doing OMAD, and changing your diet, so you're lowering the sugars and bringing the blood sugar more stable as well, to combat the reaction to cortisol and the burnout. So that's where I find, if you're going from being a sugar burner to trying to intermittent fast all day long, your body's going to be so stressed out, not know what
Mhm.
to do, and then your cortisol is just going to be even higher. And I use the lumen to test if I'm in fat burning or not. And you can see that if you fast too long, you're going to start burning your sugars and break down your muscle, and your body's not liking it, right? So it's very important to make sure that you're doing it right. Unfortunately, men have it much better
Yeah.
off with being a lot more simple. We're a little more special and complex. And I use fasting every single day. It's almost hard for me to remember to eat, but I love it because it heals my body and especially helps with my gut, and I have great energy. But you have to be careful, and you have to make sure you're using the right electrolytes and hydration, and
Yes.
so
Yeah, and I think it's a good point too, to say that everyone's different when it comes to fast. Like, I don't do well with fasting. I'm one of those that I wake up in the morning and I'm ready to eat, right? But there's people are just, they're different, and so I have seen clients that struggle with low blood sugar. So you have to watch that too.
yeah.
So yeah, I think just realizing that you have to do what's right for your body and go by how you feel.
Right. If you wake up and you're hungry and you need to eat, you better eat, because
Mhm.
otherwise you're adding a stressor to your brain and your body. Before we go, tell us what happens when someone comes to you with the functional lab test and then the program, and how long it lasts.
Yeah. So my signature program, my favorite program that I've created, is called By Burnout. So this is what it looks like. We send lab kits to your home. Everything that we send to you is all in-home collection. So it's very convenient. And then you just would FedEx it back in the kit, back into the lab. We have results usually within about 3 weeks. So it's pretty quick turnaround. But what it looks like inside my program is we have not only lessons that coincide with every single thing that could be on the lab. So we have lab interpretation videos, we've got lessons to go along with it, but we're big on personalized support. So we do one-on-one consultations with our clients to really go through and each lab and explain fully, so they have a good understanding of what their labs mean to them. Then we put together personalized protocols as far as diet, lifestyle, targeted supplements, etc. And it's Caitlin and I, my dietitian that works with me as a team. And so this also includes 6 months of support. So I'm big on it, on, you know, expectations, and knowing that you didn't get here overnight and it's not going to change overnight. And I think that having us in your back pocket and the support for extended period of time is the key to our program. It's a great program, but it's that extended support time that is just, it's everything, because that is what's going to help you to take what we see in the labs, take all of our suggestions or personalized step-by-step plan of action, and really implement it. Because all these tools are great, supplements are great, labs are great, but if you're not implementing anything, it's all worthless. And so I think that's what traditional healthcare is lacking so much right now, is the support aspect. So we're big on support with inside of our program, but typically we start to see amazing results around the 4 to 6 month mark is the sweet spot. So it's a lot of fun to watch the progression for our clients.
Amazing. And I can tell you that my husband did a program like yours, not a program, but lab testing like yours, got the results, got the supplements, never heard back from the practitioner, never a follow-up even to see if we wanted to reorder. I was shocked. And that's the problem with today, is that even in Western medicine, holistic practitioners, the follow through is what's missing. And so I love that you offer that. Tell people where they can find you. What's your website?
Yeah, my website is wildrootsgenetics.com. You can see all the information on By Burnout there. And then also check me out on TikTok, is my favorite platform. TikTok and I get along great. I'm at kelly.rebelwhitecoat, and you can find me there on Instagram as well.
Amazing. Thank you, Kelly. And before we go, I just wanted to mention a couple key supplements that help with burnout. Number one, 96% of the United States is deficient in iodine. And we talked about diet. The problem is our soils are completely depleted, unfortunately. And it was once put in iodized salt, but now it's only there. There's not enough there. And the salt is full of microplastics usually. And most iodine supplements are coming from radioactive sources from the Asias due to Fukushima and Chernobyl, where the acceleradine comes from South America. And you need it for hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's. I would say that most people are hypo, and especially if you are experiencing burnout and adrenal issues, right? The thyroid is the master endocrine gland. It's controlling your adrenals, it's controlling your ovaries and your hormones, your gonads. So it is essential for that. It helps metabolism and fat oxidation, supports apoptosis, which is the destruction of diseased and unhealthy cells, helps with increasing that ATP production through the Krebs cycle, as Kelly mentioned, going from 2 ATP all the way to 36. And it prevents PCOS, fibrocystic breast disease, hormonal imbalances, helps alleviate the estrogen dominance that you see in people with burnout. And it helps regulate blood sugar and insulin resistance. Just by taking the acceleradine iodine, you can actually lower your blood sugar. It improves protein synthesis, devitalizes bacteria, viruses, mold, fungus, and parasites, and the other foreign pathogens that could be occurring in the gut that we were talking about, reduces inflammation, helps regulate estrogen in the body. And for all of you moms out there, it decreases the risk of stillbirths, miscarriages, and low birth weight infants. It's also really important for your kids to be taking because it helps with IQ and brain, and then also helps with depression and anxiety and brain fog. So that is number one. And then we also mentioned electrolytes and the importance of the minerals, right? Well, the accelerated ancient salt is full of all the complete minerals, over 60 minerals, and that includes the magnesium, potassium, and of course the sodium, calcium, and iron that we need. It optimizes cellular function, but that salt is really needed for the adrenals and for burnout. It's actually known that when your adrenals are tapped, you are needing more salt for that support. And it lowers blood sugar. So most people are suffering from high blood sugar, but we've tested it where if your blood sugar is high, just taking some of the accelerated ancient salt will actually lower your blood sugar. So the combination of the acceleradine iodine and the accelerated salt, you're lowering your blood sugar, you're supporting your adrenals, and it also is going to help with protein and fat metabolism. And it's also been shown to help with heart disease. The accelerated ancient salt there's no plastics in it. We don't use explosives to mine the salts, like some Himalayan salts do. It's completely clean of all chemicals, explosives, pollutants, and then of course it's enhanced with scalar frequencies to help detox from the radiation and the heavy metals. So the accelerating iodine is also detoxing the body of the heavy metals and the radiation, even the ones that are going into the thyroid, but the ones that are crossing the blood-brain barrier and in all 100 trillion cells of the body. So the acceleradine is kicking those toxins out, And then the accelerated ancient salt is helping with any of the detox flu symptoms. And the last one I'll just mention is the accelerated thyroid, because it supports the thyroid. As I mentioned, most people are suffering from hypothyroidism as we are going into this burnout era, and then the global stress and the heavy metals and the toxicity in our food. We don't even know what a true hamburger is anymore, because things are being made in labs now. So there's so much that's going against us, and this is just a way to keep your body going in the right direction. So thank you, Kelly. Everyone check her out, her website. I think I need to do her lab testing and go through the program. So I love what you're doing, and I love your openness on your own personal story. It is very helpful for all of us, because I think most people can identify with you. Thanks again for joining us, everyone. And if I can help you with your health issues, you can contact me directly through the website, sarabantahealth.com. Happy to put together a protocol for you. Join the free group coaching on Telegram with the link below. I teach you on a daily basis and give you the tips and tools to enhance your health. Get your lab tests done from Kelly, and let me look at them as well and see if I can help with the supplements as well, and we can work together. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram under Accelerated Health Products, across over 100 channels under Accelerated Health TV and Radio Show. And join us every week, Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific. And you can find all the supplements, all the videos at sarabantahealth.com. You can use coupon WELCOME10 for 10% off site-wide. Thanks again for joining us here, and have a great week.